Hello everyone, I'm Ocean Robbins. I'm so excited that in about 15 minutes we're going to begin our broadcast of episode 5. Can you believe it? We're already halfway through this summit. Episode 5 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. Today our focus is cancer. Shattering myths and empowering hope. The lifestyle strategies that can change everything. You're going to discover today how lifestyle and nutrition impact up to 95% of cancer risk, and what that means for your life and for your loved ones. We're going to explore one remarkable food that's been linked to a 71% drop in breast cancer mortality. We're going to highlight other nutrient-rich foods that can help protect your DNA, that can calm inflammation, that can reduce key cancer drivers like IGF-1. And you're going to hear about groundbreaking research showing that lifestyle changes can slow or even stop cancer progression. This is about busting myths, igniting hope, and empowering you with tools that can help protect and sustain your life. As we go through the day, please continue to post and engage in the comment section on the broadcast page. Share what you're learning, what this means for you, what your takeaways are, what you're hearing that is light bulb moments. And also respond to other folks. Share your thoughts on their comments, your own reactions, and your appreciations. And also share your questions, because we're going to take time a little bit now, a little bit at the end of the episode as well, to answer live questions. Kelly said, "Hi Ocean, it's Kelly from Las Vegas. I attended the summit in May and had lost a tremendous amount of weight on the GLP-1s. Still continuing my weight loss and have joined a gym and changed my diet. Having this summit repeated a second time has been such a godsend to my journey, reminding me of what I previously learned and reinvigorating me with my diet. I'm so glad that I've been attending these amazing episodes again. I've been telling many people about FRN and how wonderful it is. My last lab report had poor cholesterol and fat markers in my blood, so today's episode, she must have left this yesterday, is so important for me. Thank you again for everything you and the team do. So happy to attend this again." Kelly, we are so glad to have you with us again. Welcome back. It does sometimes take a bit of repetition. It's not like you just hear one thing and your whole world changes, because you've got habits, you've got neural pathways that are often deeply engrooved. And in a toxic food culture, that can be bad news. But the good news is that when we create support systems to help us keep learning and growing and deepening on the path, it can get easier and easier to make healthy choices. And so often, those lab results change. Dramatically so. Now, some people find, I will say, that they're eating a pretty healthy diet and their cholesterol may have gone down some, but it's still stubbornly high. Or other lab results aren't all that they'd like them to be. And here's where I want to say that there is a difference between better than most and excellence. And for some people, that difference is enough. But for other people, they've got to go to excellence. So I would suggest for anybody who feels like, I eat a pretty healthy diet and I'm still struggling, see if you could try for a month eating a pristine diet. Like everything that passes your lips aligns with what you know to be good for you. And then check your labs and see if there's been a change. It's good data. Gina said, "I don't recall how I found FRN, but wow, so glad I did. Your work nourishes the body and the psyche. Thank you so much for all you do. Can't say it enough. I highly recommend Whole Life Club." Thank you, Gina. We're so glad you're here. And for those who don't know, Whole Life Club is FRN's ongoing membership community where we provide support to help you implement, sustain, and optimize your healthy lifestyle long term. You get recipes, you get ongoing wisdom from leading experts, and you get community with peers, colleagues to uplift you and support you on the journey. It's an amazing resource. We've been developing it for many years and we're just making it better and better. There's about 10,000 members. When you get an empowerment package, you get access to join Whole Life Club for a 60% discount and a 30-day trial. Christine said, "I've been a member of FRN for a few years now and I can't find enough words to thank you for bringing so much vital information to us all. The experts and resources you bring are heaven sent. My life is better with you in it." Oh, thank you, Christine. Our lives are better with you in them as well. Thank you for being a part of this. Sid and Lauren wrote, "I'm your biggest fan right now. My wife and I are both morbidly obese. My father-in-law is a Southern butter sugar fan of the ages. We like our meat. With that said, I've heard some of this before about going vegan being so much better. For the past year, I've been trying to get us away from anything boxed or packaged. It's hard. So hard. It's very convenient when it's their nights to cook. For them, it's just easier to take it from the freezer or out of a box. I've started making meals ahead of time and freezing them. Then about 4 months ago, my health went from bad to worse. Now they cook more than I can. So I need help. I'm slowly but surely figuring out the foods, but I'm still confused on what to put together. How to make it easy for them. How to get all the right nutrients in and safely. How to get all my protein in. There are so many foods we've never tried, and I can't waste money. What do you recommend? Thank you for your time and great knowledge. Well, Sid and Lauren, first of all, I'm sorry that your health has gone from bad to worse and that you're struggling with this. And you're in the right place. And there's hope. And it's time. We want to support you in enjoying delicious, nourishing, healthy food and making that work with your time and energy and budget. So we're going to gift you with a copy of Real Superfoods. Everyday ingredients to elevate your health. Our team will follow up with you. It's our cookbook, one of our cookbooks, along with Powered by Plants. And it's available now. So folks who want to can get it at realsuperfoods.foodrevolution.org or just get it on Amazon. And our team will get you a copy sent from the publisher. So congratulations. And as far as bigger advice, I want to say recipes are a great doorway to gaining skills. And as you gain the skills with healthy eating, it gets easier and easier. Eventually, you might not need recipes because you've got enough fluency, like a musician who can improv. But you need sheet music and you need scales to get those skills down. Recipes take longer than cooking things you already know from scratch, things you've done before, things that are familiar, or things that come out of a box. But find recipes you like, or hopefully that you love, and every time you make them, it'll get a little bit easier. You'll test out different ways of doing it that work best for your palate and your lifestyle, and you can find that it gets simpler and smoother and faster and more delicious and more familiar, which is another cool part with food. So I'm hoping that helps you enjoy the cookbook. And for those who don't know, Whole Life Club also has more than 1,400 whole foods plant-based recipes that are all amazing and easily searchable. And so that's another great resource. And for folks who are really wanting to implement and sustain this over time, you really may find Whole Life Club is a great resource for you. Pat asks, what's more beneficial, beets cooked or raw or beet supplement? What about the benefit of nitrates to the brain? Well, Pat, thank you for asking. Beets are awesome. We heard about that yesterday, and their benefits are vast for cardiovascular health and for brain health. And, the truth is, any way you eat beets, cooked or raw or powdered, can be beneficial. Now, beet powder is technically a supplement. It can play a role in your diet. It's usually better to prioritize the whole food form and certainly more economical. Fresh or cooked beets bring not just nitrates, but also fiber and antioxidants and phytonutrients that work together to support circulation and brain health and overall vitality. Cooking may lower the nitrate content a bit compared to raw beets, but both can be beneficial. Now, the nitrates convert into nitric oxide in the body, which helps relax blood vessels and improve blood flow, including to the brain, where it may support memory and focus. Beet powder can be a handy way to get a concentrated dose regularly, and if you don't like the taste of beets, it's maybe a more convenient option. It's very concentrated, of course, but if you can get fresh beets, and if you can find ways to enjoy them, then that's probably going to be more economical, and it's a whole food, which generally means it comes with more wholeness, including the water that's extracted from the powders. So if you can go with real beets, I'm going to recommend it, and hopefully you can find ways to enjoy them. Folks, if you just joined us, I'm Ocean Robbins, saying some welcoming words, and we're going to begin rolling episode 5, focused on cancer, at the top of the hour in about 5 minutes. As we go through the day, please continue to post and engage in the comment section on our broadcast page with your questions, your comments, your top takeaways, your breakthroughs, and also to engage with others. Beverly said, I'm enjoying the summit. Ocean mentioned that he makes his soy yogurt with a yogurt maker. I'm wondering what yogurt maker he likes. Thanks for asking, Beverly. Well, I use one I got years ago. I don't think that model is around anymore. And to be super honest, the container is plastic, which I don't love, but we're just still using it. But there are a lot of options out there, and you can absolutely make home yogurts yourself. In fact, not only can you make it yourself, but it's often healthier, more affordable, and more sustainable than store-bought versions. All you need is some plant milk like soy, oat, cashew, or almond, some probiotic culture, and a way to keep it warm for, several hours, maybe 8 to 12 hours. That's it. No added sugar, no questionable thickeners, no plastic waste, no additives, no flavorings, just simple wholesome ingredients and probiotic goodness. If you want to take the plunge, there are a few tools that can help. Some folks like the VitaClay yogurt maker, which uses a clay insert and gives you that traditional fermentation experience. Other people like the Instant Pot. A lot of models have a yogurt setting built right in, and that's stainless steel. Then there's the Bear yogurt maker, which even lets you make Greek-style yogurt and plant-based cheeses. But you don't need a lot of fancy equipment. You can actually get by with a jar and a warm spot in your kitchen, or maybe a heating pad and a sleeping bag and a little curiosity. I love this because it's another way we can take food into our own hands, literally. You get to choose the ingredients, control the flavor and thickness, and avoid a lot of the junk that often sneaks into packaged products. Best of all, you'll be nourishing your gut microbiome and those trillions of helpful microbes that do so much to support your digestion and your immune system and even your mood. So I encourage you, give homemade plant-based yogurts a try. Your body and your taste buds just might thank you. And we do have an article on this. If you go to foodrevolution.org and type yogurt, you'll find it with lots of recipes and good tips. One tip I will give is that if your base milk is thick, you're going to get a thicker final product. We find that Eden Soy Unsweetened provides the thickest ultimate final yogurt because it's got a lot of soybeans in it. There's 12 grams of protein per cup, and it's just soybeans and water. Susan said, I've got 2 bidets in my home, and are bidets a good addition to a toilet? Well, this is a little outside of the range of food here, Susan, but I guess poop is what comes out the other end, so it's a fair question. So bidets can be a great addition to a toilet for hygiene and for environmental reasons. They may reduce the need for toilet paper, which can help lower household waste and decrease exposure to the chemicals that wind up in a lot of paper products. Many people find them gentler on sensitive skin and that they do a better job getting you clean. So we do have a bidet in our home. Actually, we have a couple of them, one in each bathroom. So that's a cool thing. And you can get heated toilet seats. And I went to Japan some years back, and they were like the norm over there. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. So then we had to get some. So yeah, I'm a fan. Folks, if you just joined us, we'll be starting episode 5 in a couple minutes here. I'm Ocean Robbins, your host, welcoming you. As we move through the day, please continue posting and sharing in the comment section on the broadcast page. Tell us what you're learning, what this means in your life, and what your questions are. You can refresh the comments regularly to see the most recent ones that have been submitted. Today we're focusing on cancer. And the sad reality is, the war on cancer isn't going all that well. Certainly, there have been some life-saving advances, but despite trillions of dollars spent and millions of lives lost, cancer is still the world's second leading cause of death. But the good news is there's a lot you can do. Today, we're going to get the facts and the latest breakthroughs. Rachel said, "This series is teaching me so many things. I'm ready to make changes. I'm 55 and thought I was eating pretty healthy. These studies show I have a lot of room to improve." Well, we're all learning, we're all growing, and we're glad you're here with us. All right, folks, it's time to roll episode 5 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries. Here we go.
The food revolution is ultra important.
The food revolution is an opportunity to change your life for the better.
What if food could be your medicine?
Learn how to eat
to live a longer life.
If you want longevity, then focus on life-giving nutrition.
The food revolution is happiness.
The food revolution is vital for human health and the planet.
What if food could change everything?
What if food could reduce your risk of cancer?
What if your food choices could shape the future?
Now is a time for change.
Say yes to the change you want to see.
Now is the time to take charge of your life.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now, baby.
Cancer is the most feared disease in the world. Nearly everyone has been touched by it in some way, whether through a personal diagnosis or the experience of a loved one.
Cancer's prevalence is staggering. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 1 in 6 deaths worldwide is due to cancer, and the numbers are rising. Genetics play a role, of course, and so do environmental factors. But research shows that almost half of all cancers can be prevented through diet and lifestyle changes. And this is profound, it's powerful, and it's also urgent. Welcome to episode 5 of the Food Revolution Summit, the cancer episode.
Cancer is one of the leading causes of death worldwide. By 2030, the number of new cases is expected to reach more than 20 million per year.
As we all know from our own friends and family, there's really an epidemic of cancer. It's even estimated now that at least 40% of people will face some kind of cancer in their lifetime, and the percentages are going up. And so why is this happening?
Well, cancer is it's a process in which a cell becomes damaged. And when the cell becomes damaged, it can't control its ability to replicate. It replicates uncontrollably. But that process of damage takes decades. And it's just more indication that the American way of eating and living in the modern world leads to a gradual increase in damage to the cell.
Cancer used to be a disease of the elderly, but now cancer is prevalent in our modern world. And there's a number of factors. In fact, my youngest person that I diagnosed with a triple negative breast cancer was 18 years old. 18 years old. And her genetics were normal. So as a reminder, 95% of cancers is not genetics, okay? So the number of cancer cases today is linked to several aspects of modern life.
Cancer tends to run in families. So if a lot of people in your family have gotten cancer, does that make it likely that you will too?
What about the BRCA gene? Does it typically lead to cancer?
If we take all of our chronic diseases together again, we'll often see the figure that 80% of it is lifestyle and 20% of it is other stuff. But if we hone in on, let's say, breast cancer, which is my specialty within, oncology, only 5 to 10% of our breast cancers are actually genetic. And even within those patients that have a genetic mutation, even if we're talking about the BRCA gene, which is, the one that we hear about more often, those people can control the expression of those breast cancer genes through their lifestyle. And so cancers certainly run in families, but habits and ways of doing things and places of living and all of these things also run in families. And so we can see these clustering of diagnoses, but often we find that there is no genetic component that we're able to find with genetic testing. The expression of a gene that you might have is so controllable with the way you live. And we can turn on genes and turn off genes with things like our food and our movement and our sleep and our stress. And so I always share the example of I've had multiple patients throughout my career, women that are in their 70s and even 80s with a BRCA mutation that would have classically resulted in a breast cancer diagnosis much earlier, maybe in your 20s or 30s. They didn't have anything happen in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, sometimes 70s. And then we'll find this genetic mutation and say, gosh, you've got the gene. You were supposed to have had breast cancer long ago. And then I'll ask them, tell me about your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what did you eat? Where did you live? What was your stress like? You know, how did you live? And always it's, well, we had a garden, you know, lots of exercise, pretty low stress life, just happy, you know, very strong faith, you know, these types of things you'll find in these people. And they probably kept that gene turned off until very late in life, when just the natural aging process, you know, allowed it to be expressed.
Cancer does not happen overnight. This is a progressive process through our lifetime. 95% of cancers is not genetics. And I think that's the key for people to understand, that 95% of cancer is not genetic. So if it's not genetic, what is the factor that's influencing it? And that's where, when I spent years diagnosing, close to 1 million cancers, 1 million cases of diseases, whether they're cancer or not, there is a process that's going on at that cellular level where our lifestyle is a significant contributing factor.
In 1971, U.S. President Richard Nixon declared war on cancer. Since that time, the U.S. alone has spent more than $500 billion on cancer research and treatment. And we've made some progress, but cancer is still killing millions of people every year. Might this be because we've been focusing in the wrong place?
The point is that our thinking is tipped towards the expensive drugs. It's distorted towards the expensive drugs. And it's tipped away from what is common sense and not just good for weight loss and not just good for diabetes and not just good for heart disease. But when you adopt a healthy lifestyle, you're also decreasing your risk of cancer by 50% and dementia by 40% and many other diseases.
When we think of cost of cancer treatment, there's various stages of this, from diagnostics to surgery to chemotherapy to radiation to then targeted therapies. On average in the U.S., according to the National Cancer Institute, this can cost an individual patient anywhere from $10,000 to $200,000 per patient, depending on the stage of cancer. And it's going to depend if it's a more common cancer, and that's per year, right? So every year, 100,000 on a person that's been diagnosed with cancer, or 200,000 if they're getting advanced therapies. Now, individuals, if they are lucky enough to have insurance, might only be paying the out-of-pocket expenses of $5,000 to $10,000, but this is a global problem. This is a societal problem that will influence us elsewhere. Now, the cost of prevention, on the other hand, is relatively low, meaning that if you follow a healthy plant-rich diet in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, maybe $3 to $7 a day, and that could decrease your risk of cancer. So it's not just a matter of following a healthy diet of whole plant-based rich foods, exercising. So engaging in that regular activity, and you do not need a gym membership. You can go outside and walk. It's the most inexpensive way of keeping your weight to a place where your obesity is not contributing to cancer development. The cost in prevention is significantly less.
I could easily back up a solid 50% of all cancer on planet Earth being eradicated through diet and lifestyle changes, and in certain cancer profiles, 80 to 90%. Think about this. Your average woman who chooses to go through chemotherapy does so for somewhere between a 3 and 10% drop in probable mortality.
High-tech treatments can be helpful, but they are very costly and they often aren't successful. And genetics aren't the primary factor in determining cancer risk. So how can we take charge of protecting ourselves?
Let's take a look at the foods and dietary patterns that may contribute the most to cancer risk.
Chronic inflammation is a key player in the development of cancer. Persistent chronic inflammation damages your DNA. Inflammation, that is a key factor, results from dietary habits. So the high intake of ultra-processed foods, obesity, stress, smoking, yes, people are still smoking, are also contributing to our significant increase in cancer development. The modern Western diet, which is characterized by high consumption of ultra-processed foods, contributes to inflammation, metabolic dysregulation, and gut microbiome imbalances. These three factors will contribute to cancer development. So our unhealthy fats, refined sugars, additives in food, all of this. In fact, we had find that most people, about 60% of Americans, are eating ultra-processed foods on an everyday basis. And then they're wondering why they're developing chronic diseases.
If I wanted to design a diet that was the most cancer promoting that I could think of, I would design a diet that, is not that dissimilar to the standard American diet. You could take the standard American diet and ratchet up the added fats and sugars a little bit, add up a little more processed food. Pretty hard to do because the diet's already saturated with those things.
75% of the health of our immune system is maintained by the health of our gut. And when we're not feeding our gut beautiful fiber from plant-based foods, the microbiome begins to get turned upside down and it stops training our immune system. So we get a deficiency in our immune system because we're not feeding it the right way. And then the inflammatory foods from a Western diet and processed food, ultra-processed food and animal products really cause disruption in the gut and systemic inflammation that again impacts the health of the immune system and fuels growth of those cancers.
What we do know is in general, a very heavily animal processed food-based diet with the addition of, potentially alcohol and sugar-sweetened beverages, those are the cancer-causing substances. And so when you look on any major set of guidelines in terms of preventing cancer in the first place or preventing cancer recurrence, we'll always see the red meats and the processed meats, alcohol and sugar-sweetened drinks listed as kind of the worst offenders.
Protein is a nutrition topic that seems to be front and center for a lot of folks. It's crucial for so much, from building muscle to supporting digestion and bone health. Getting enough is clearly important, but might some of us be in danger of getting too much? And when it comes to cancer risk, is it better to get protein from animals or from plants?
Look at the website of the National Cancer Institute. They'll say, cancer is a genetic disease. Full stop. I say, no, it's not. I was interested in knowing what protein did to cancer. Does high protein feeding increase cancer formation? I learned more protein really turned that cancer on. Animal protein did that, plant proteins did not. Because when you're eating the whole food, you're also eating complex carbohydrates and a lot of the antioxidants, which tend to repress some of the activities that protein otherwise might have.
I think the most striking and important finding of the last decade in the history of nutritional science has been the finding that animal protein leads to shorter lifespans in a dose-dependent manner. So there's been more than a dozen different studies published in the last 5 years that different researchers, different groups of researchers in different parts of the world, studying hundreds of thousands of people and tracking them for 15, 20, 30 years, and looking at hard endpoints like death or age of death. And they found that as animal protein increases in the diet, it shortens lifespan accordingly. So essentially, you dial your lifespan risks by how much animal protein you eat. But what was strikingly surprising to so many people and researchers and people interested in nutritional science was that the more plant protein you ate, the longer you lived. So here are these basic findings that we're seeing, and we're understanding the science behind them today, that more animal protein leads to shorter lifespan and more plant protein leads to longer lifespans.
We know that from the work of Dr. Will Lee at the Angiogenesis Foundation, that all of the animal products and processed food disrupt that growth of the blood vessels. And when you disrupt angiogenesis, you get this abnormal growth of blood vessels into the cancer cells. But they did a lot of research and identified the very foods that turn angiogenesis off to cancer cells. And it is greens and beans and berries and mushrooms and onions and garlic and spices like turmeric and ginger and green tea. So a beautiful breakfast, lunch, and dinner actually causes the blood vessels to die off. It starves cancer.
The notion that plant foods might lower cancer risk and that animal protein might increase it is fascinating. And to many people, it's also counterintuitive. Processed meat has been categorized as carcinogenic along with tobacco and asbestos, and red meat has been categorized as a probable carcinogen. But why?
In these large, more modern sort of cohort studies, observational studies, there is some consistency across many of these observations that higher intake of processed meats, higher intake of red meats is associated in many of these studies with cancer, and particularly colorectal cancer. And then there's mechanisms that we know. So we can observe something to be true, more red or processed meat, more cancer, but it's that observation is made more strong when we have a mechanism. So how does consuming these things actually change the biology to promote cancer? Is there a feasible explanation, a mechanism?
We've got the nitrites and nitrates that are added to processed meat. That when we cook the processed meat, the bacon goes on the grill. So the nitrites that have been added to that bacon to keep it pink and fresh, so it looks like nice red juicy bacon, under heat, those nitrites combine with the protein in the bacon and give us carcinogenic nitrosamines, which substantially increases the risk of bowel cancer. So about 42,000 people a year, Ocean, in the UK develop colon cancer. We think that about 9,000 of those conditions, of those diagnoses, are directly due to the consumption of processed meat and red meat.
So the wrong foods are changing the cell environment. You want to think of cells as sitting in a little bathtub, okay? So here's your cell, and if it's cancer, it really has a set of like lavender salts and bubbles and a little loofah scrub. It wants them, it needs them, it loves them. And if you take it all away and it's sitting in plain old bath water, just pop, it goes through apoptosis, which is cancer cell suicide, essentially. All right, so let's look at that bath water. What is our food doing? It is either going into that water becoming pro-cancer or anti-cancer. And what, in particular, ingesting meat and dairy do is they fill that bathwater with all the little bubbles that cancer loves. It has words, things like, for breast cancer, elevating estrogen. For all cancer, elevating IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1. It's the biggest growth promoter inside our body, screaming at everything to grow, which is useful for natural cell turnover. Dangerous when you have an excess, because now the cells are growing out of control. Angiogenesis, blood vessel genesis, the birth of new blood flow. If that little cell wants to exist and persist, it needs its own blood supply, bringing its nutrients to it. And then when it gets big enough, boom, exit strategy, metastasizes through those same blood vessels. What else is in the water? Insulin resistance. It elevates blood glucose, which elevates insulin, which then has a whole host of damaging effects. And it all cascades into inflammation, oxidative stress, DNA damage, and now we're at the inciting event for cancer. The predominant foods that fuel the bath that science will definitely show repeatedly are going to be meat, and the worst of the worst would be processed meat and red meat. But even your chicken and turkey and fish, people always will say, well, what about, and fill in the blank, and the answer is still the same. It's all the same bathwater. Those elements that promote cancer, like elevating estrogen, IGF-1, angiogenesis, they are there, whether or not that animal was sustainably raised or had organic only feed, right? So these processes inside of you are the reaction to consuming all types of meat. Then we have dairy in addition to the meat, which has all sorts of conflicting things inside of it, because some are good to have, such as butyrate and calcium, and other things are definitely damaging to you, and there's a lot of saturated fat. For example, LACE, the Life After Cancer Epidemiology Study, looked at breast cancer survivors, and then over the ensuing years, they looked at deaths and compared dairy consumption to mortality. There was a 49% increase in overall mortality in these breast cancer patients from consuming one or more servings of high-fat dairy daily versus less than half a serving. So it wasn't even versus just soy milk or no dairy. It was some dairy, just that little difference made a huge change in outcome.
Carcinogens come from many sources. I mean, diet's number one, probably. The three most common sources are acrylamides, which come from superheated carbohydrates, and the carcinogens you commonly found in meat, which would be the polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and heterocyclic amines, and a group called the nitroso compounds. And these are caused by basically cooking meat. We know that the polyphenols within plants can have direct anti-cancer properties. And the thing about plants is they're full of minerals and vitamins, they're full of polyphenols, and they're not full of carcinogens. So, that's what you should be aiming for. We did a trial in this unit where we boosted patients' diet with a pill which had broccoli, green tea, turmeric, and pomegranate. And it was just a way of boosting their intake of those very high polyphenol-rich foods. And it was a government-funded UK study, and we compared that against placebo. And we saw a 64% difference in the markers of prostate cancer within 6 months. And that wasn't, an alternative medicine study. That was a mainstream oncology study, and we presented the data in the world's biggest cancer conference in Chicago. So, so we know if you do the science, you see good results. In fact, if you had a drug with that response rate, you'd be very happy.
In episode 2, we heard about Dr. Dean Ornish's breakthrough research on how diet and lifestyle could impact the early stages of Alzheimer's. In episode 4, we heard about how this same approach could help prevent and even reverse cardiovascular disease. But what about prostate cancer?
Dr. Dean Ornish did an amazing study on prostate cancer, and they looked at grade 1, grade 2, so lower grade prostate cancers. And they did studies with some of the top scientists in this area around the United States. And so they studied the effects of a 12-week intensive lifestyle intervention on prostate cancer. And they found some amazing things.
In our study, we only took men who had decided, for reasons unrelated to our study, not to have surgery or radiation or chemo. So then we could then randomly divide them into two groups, and neither group was getting conventional treatment, but one group was getting our intensive lifestyle intervention. So we could look at the effects of lifestyle without being confounded by if they were also getting surgery or radiation. So we could look at the effects of lifestyle changes alone. And what we found after a year is that 6 of the men in the control group needed surgery or radiation or chemo, but none of the people in the intervention group did. And their PSA levels, which is a marker for prostate cancer, which we drew their blood in San Francisco, but they ran them at Sloan Kettering. The PSA levels went down in the intervention group, went up in the control group. In other words, they got better in the intervention group, worse in the control group. The higher the PSA, the more likely the cancer is to spread. There's a standard line of prostate tumor cells growing in tissue culture that people can add different drugs or different things just to see how it affects it. So we added the blood of the patients in our study to it. This was actually done in Bill Aronson's lab at UCLA. And we found that when we added the blood of the people who had gone through our lifestyle program, the tumor growth was inhibited 70% versus only 9% in the control group. What was even more amazing, that the inhibition of the tumor growth was in direct proportion to the degree of lifestyle change that the people made. So it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, that people change their lifestyle, you draw their blood, you add it to the prostate tumor growing in tissue culture, like in a petri dish, and there was something in the blood that when you change your lifestyle that inhibits the tumor from growing. And what's true for prostate cancer will likely be true for breast cancer as well. They have very similar pathophysiologies.
In the US, cancer has now taken over heart disease as the #1 killer in humans. In the UK, Cancer Research UK has stated that 1 in every 2 people born after 1960 will be diagnosed with cancer. According to the World Health Organization, cancer currently ranks as the 2nd leading cause of death around the planet.
Those who eat plant-based diets, not even necessarily whole food plant-based diets, have lower risk of all cancers combined. Not only can plant-based diets reverse the progression of cancer? It's the only diet that's ever been proven to reverse the progression of cancer. They took human breast cancer cells growing in petri, just dripped the blood of women in the standard American diet onto the cancer, and then they took those same women, put them on a plant-based diet for 2 weeks, and they could show not only the cancer growth suppression, but measuring something called apoptosis, or programmed cell death. Their bodies were able to kind of reprogram the cancer cells to kind of force them into early retirement, killing off cancer cells after just 2 weeks. The results are really quite dramatic. The same blood now circulating throughout these bodies gained the power to significantly slow down and stop breast cancer cell growth after just 2 weeks. Eating health.
This is very encouraging news. We can take charge of our health and take massive action to lower the risk and reverse the progression of cancer by eating the right foods. So what does a cancer-fighting diet actually look like?
We're seeing that this combination of green vegetables, nuts and seeds in the diet, which moderate fat content enhances the absorption of the anti-cancer phytochemicals in the vegetables by 20 to 50 times. Combined with exposure to beans or legumes with their flavonoids and all their beneficial effects, and are relatively high in protein, those categories of foods have been shown to have dramatic effects to extend human lifespan and prevent against cancer. So I'm saying now that nuts and seeds, green vegetables, colorful vegetables, and beans have a tremendous amount of science behind them, documenting their lifespan promoting and anti-cancer effects.
So the role in a healthy diet in reducing cancer risk really comes down to a cellular level, meaning the cells require ingredients in order for them to function. So your diet can give them those ingredients or it can't. So number one ingredient would be antioxidant rich foods. Antioxidant rich foods will fight oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is what contributes to cancer. Now, I want to take a moment to mention when people think of stress, there's all different kinds of stress. There's mental stress, there's physiologic stress, and then there's oxidative stress. So when I'm talking about cancer, I'm talking about oxidative stress on the individual cells. The cells aren't getting what they need to fight it off. Antioxidant rich compounds will neutralize these free radicals that originally would create instability in the body, but they will neutralize that. So fruits and vegetables. Eat the rainbow. Red, orange, green, yellow, blue, indigo, violet. Roy G. Biv. Easy to remember. That rainbow is full of phytochemicals or ingredients to fight disease, including cancer. Research has actually shown that diets that are high in antioxidants are associated with reduced risk of various cancers, including lung, colon, breast cancer, and individuals who have a higher intake of vegetables and fruits have up to a 20% lower risk of developing cancers compared to those who don't. That is not the one serving of potatoes or French fries, okay? We are talking about the full rainbow, dark leafy greens. The other way that food can contribute to cancer prevention is through the gut microbiome, so fiber and gut health. How it works. So fiber supports gut health by promoting a regular bowel movement. It helps remove carcinogens and toxins from that digestive tract. It also helps produce something called short-chain fatty acids, which have an anti-inflammatory protective effect on the colon cells. Diets that are higher in fiber are linked to about a 15% reduction in developing just colorectal cancer.
The microbiome is digesting fiber and releasing a litany of antioxidant compounds, of vitamins, of short-chain fatty acids, which are very anti-inflammatory. And it's helping increase transit time and creating stool bulk. So, when I grew up, I thought fiber, Metamucil, poop, end of story, end of fiber. Like, there's so much more going on. But it turns out the bowel movements are actually part of the benefit. What is happening, it seems, is that bile salts are getting excreted through stool. And there was one study looked at about 1,500 women who had precancerous breast changes. And then they looked at the frequency of their bowel movements. And those who had 2 or fewer bowel movements a week versus those who had 1 bowel movement a day or more had 4.5 times the incidence of these precancerous breast changes then becoming cancer. So what's happening there? It turns out it is the bile salts, which have a direct cytotoxic effect once they hit the breast tissue. So when you have a slow transit time, because you're not a super pooper, these bile salts get reabsorbed through the enterohepatic circulation, and now they're back in action to create toxicity.
Then we also want to consider anti-inflammatory compounds. So a diet rich in anti-inflammatory compounds, for example, turmeric, omega-3s, all of these can help decrease the DNA damage that we are exposed to every single day, and can help lower the risk of developing cancerous tumors. Whole grains and plant-based proteins. Okay, so whole grains like quinoa, brown rice, amarnath. We know that these whole grains contain nutrients like B vitamins and fiber that can lower cancer risk. Eating whole grains is probably one of the most underrated thing you could do for your health. We need whole grains for our body. Then limiting or eliminating altogether red and processed meat. These meats are associated with compounds, for example, heme iron and nitrates are 2 compounds that I see when they are cooked at high temperatures create carcinogenic heterocyclic amines, HCAs. These compounds do contribute to an increase of cancer, specifically colorectal cancer. For my individuals who I know have colorectal cancer, their diet predominantly was a lot of grilled chicken, a lot of burgers, a lot of animal protein, which we know creates compounds to contribute to cancer. Hot dogs, bacon, all of these compounds actually have class 1 carcinogens or cancer-causing compounds. And this is something that is in individuals' diets every single day. And then lastly, from a everyday perspective, sugar, avoiding added sugars and refined grains. So sugar, when it's coming from natural fruits and natural products like that, fine. It comes with fiber. You don't need to worry about it. It's a real food. But now high intake of refined sugars and grains, so all your processed pastries and cookies and sodas, all of that will increase blood sugar levels and insulin levels, promoting this pro-inflammatory state that contributes to cancer development. And it happens through the stimulation and production of something called insulin-like growth factor, which has been linked to cell proliferation and reduce apoptosis or cell death, thereby fueling cancer growth.
1 in 4 cancers diagnosed in women in the world is breast cancer. So this is, in fact, a global problem. And so we've looked at a number of lifestyle factors such as physical activity, protective for particularly premenopausal breast cancer, alcohol, clearly increasing risk, high fruits and vegetables, high fiber, protective against breast cancer, avoiding weight gain through premenopausal years reduces risk of breast cancer. Part of the answer is, when do we start? If we start with our daughters or our nieces or our grandchildren, we could have a really big impact on premenopausal breast cancer. With that healthy diet from, let's say, age 10 or 12 on, high physical activity, limited alcohol, we're over 50%, over half of premenopausal breast cancer could be avoided.
It's empowering to see how each choice and every single bite add up. We can minimize the foods that aren't good for us, we can add nourishing, nutrient-dense foods, and we can incorporate physical activity and other key lifestyle habits. When we do all of these things, we can dramatically reduce our risk of cancer.
Yes. And if you really want to maximize your anti-cancer lifestyle, if you want to saturate your cells with the nutrients they need to really perform at their best, there are certain foods you may want to maximize.
The most powerful anti-cancer environment is going to come from fruits and vegetables, legumes like lentils, beans, peas, seeds, nuts, and whole grains with some healthy fats sprinkled in. What are these foods doing? Just the exact opposite of what the bad foods are doing. So they are lowering the toxic estrogen levels, lowering IGF-1, taking away angiogenesis. They are anti-angiogenic, so they're anti-inflammatory. They improve insulin sensitivity, and therefore they allow that immune system to stay attuned to anything that's wrong on the seed. So let me give you some just classic examples of how food can work. One of my favorites is broccoli and the whole cruciferous vegetable family. But broccoli has some real superpowers when it comes to seeking out and destroying cancer cells.
Legumes and whole grains and all varieties of starchy and non-starchy vegetables and our fruits and our nuts and seeds, what we traditionally would call our whole food plant-based diet, with minimal to no processed foods, and certainly minimizing animal products. And this is what you again see in the guidelines, when we look at whether it's American Cancer Society or AICR, American Institute for Cancer Research, they all say the same thing, to maximize the variety of plants in your diet.
Flax. I get so excited about flax because it's just so easy to get into your diet. So how much do you need and what is it doing anyway? I want you to have a minimum 1 tablespoon a day. You can throw it into a smoothie, into oatmeal, into a salad dressing. It's very easy to eat flax. Why is it so powerful? Well, first of all, it's the most concentrated form of healthy omega-3 fatty acids on the planet in food form. That's lovely. I'm more interested in its lignin content. So it has 100 times the lignin content of pretty much any other food on the planet. And lignins are another category of phytoestrogens. Here they are, doing good again. So when you look at studies on lignins and outcomes in breast cancer, there was a New York study, for example, that looked at women with cancer, followed them to see what percentage died, and then looked at their food consumption that included foods with flax, and lignins are also present in other foods like berries and walnuts. They found a 71% drop in mortality for high versus low lignin consumers. One really fun study that elucidates the mechanisms by which lignin is so magical took 34 breast cancer patients. So they had a core biopsy that diagnosed the cancer, and they looked at these 3 factors on the cancer. I'll tell you in a second what those are. And then they gave everybody a muffin. Half of them had a placebo muffin, and the other half had a muffin that had the content of 2 tablespoons of ground flax. They were not told to do anything else differently. And so they had a muffin a day. It's basically junk food, right? So you have a muffin a day every day for 5 weeks, and then you have your definitive surgery, lumpectomy, mastectomy, and so the tumor's out again. Let's look at those 3 things. We can then attribute any changes to what flax did. For a mere 5 weeks of consuming flax, this is what happened. Ki-67, it's a division rate. It's how quickly is this cell 1 becoming 2. So the higher the percentage, the more aggressive the cancer, the worse the outcomes in general. Went down by 34%. This other marker, CERB2, is a marker of aggression. So it's bad, dropped by 71%. Apoptosis, which I've mentioned as cancer cell suicide, just time for the cell to go, up by 30.7%, just from flax. It's a superfood, makes the top of the list. Great sources of lignins in addition to flaxseed. You'll find it in other seeds. Nuts, particularly walnuts, are great ones. Berries have it. Bread, whole grain bread will have it. So yes, you can if you really don't want flax, you could find it in other sources.
What Dr. Christy Funk just told us is amazing. In one study, women who had breast cancer were found to have a 71% lower chance of mortality. That means their cancer was 71% less likely to kill them when they consumed a lot of lignans.
Yes, and of course, foods work synergistically. So when you eat more lignans and more cruciferous vegetables, you get multiplying benefits. Now, another food that deserves way more attention as a cancer-fighting superstar is berries.
Oh yes. This is a fun one because, at least personally, I think berries are kind of delicious. I mean, they're sweet and juicy and tasty, but what is it that makes them so healthy?
So I love berries. I think their actual power is still coming to light, and it may be in the form of elagitannins and ellagic acid. These things make it down to the microbiome, which critters then turn into urolithins. Urolithins are emerging as this superstar anti-cancer compound. And what they seem to be doing is reducing cell proliferation, inducing what we call cell cycle arrest, and they're anti-angiogenic, and they change some of those oncogenes that I was mentioning, switches on and off that are in your favor. There was this 2020 paper out of Harvard and the Nurses' Health Study data looking at 8,900 breast cancer patients. And for those who consumed a mere 2 servings of blueberries a week, they had 25% less mortality. So berries are definitely a breast cancer superfood.
The good news about berries is that they're just as healthy frozen as fresh. So if fresh berries aren't accessible or affordable, frozen berries are also nutrient superstars. Now, I will add in a little nuance here. A study that made headlines recently found that adding a banana to a berry smoothie reduced antioxidant absorption by 84%. This is due to an enzyme in bananas. It's also present in apples and pears that breaks down certain anti-inflammatory antioxidant compounds. As a consumer, that finding might sound a bit alarming, especially given that bananas and berries are such a common duo. The takeaway here is that if you're making a berry smoothie and want to maximize its antioxidant potential, you might consider using mango or pineapple for sweetness instead of a banana. That said, both bananas and berries are incredibly nutritious. Even if you decide to pair berries with banana, you're still getting some wonderful nutrition. You'll just absorb more of the berries' awesomeness if you enjoy them banana-free.
Thanks for that tip, Nicole. Now let's talk about one of the hottest points of controversy in the nutrition world, soy. Some people say it's super healthy and that it's a great cancer fighter. Other folks say it's loaded with phytoestrogens and that it can cause man boobs and cancer. So what's the truth?
Soy gets a really unfair bad rap, and I kind of know why, because when I was writing my book, Breast the Owner's Manual, I dove into soy science to vilify it, to say, hey, this is a phytoestrogen. That's about all I knew about it, but I knew that it was a plant-based estrogen, and 80% of all breast cancers are fed and fueled by estrogen. So, hey, lady, spit that miso out of your mouth. What do you think you're doing? You're fueling your cancer. No more soy for you. When I read the literature, I was shocked. I had to beep, back my whole position up because not only is soy not bad to have, it's a superfood. So what I realized is, first of all, animal models did not shed soy in a positive light. When you feed mice soy, breast cancers grow. That's all I needed to know. That's all I actually did know when I was saying don't eat soy. Turns out we, as humans, don't metabolize isoflavones in soy the way mice do. And it also turns out that there are 2 main receptors for estrogen in our bodies and on our cancers, if we have them in a small, undetected form. Alpha and beta. You can use alliteration here. Alpha accelerates the cancer and beta puts on the brakes. With 1,600% more affinity, the isoflavones like genistein and daidzein in soy go over to beta. And when beta is activated, it does some very fun anti-cancer things. It can shut alpha down. It goes out into your fat cells where you have an enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase is turning some precursor steroids from your adrenal gland, like androstenedione and testosterone, into more of the estrogen that's fueling the cancer. So it shuts that process down. And if it should meander its way over into the alpha receptor, soy isoflavones are signaling division at 1/10 to 1/100th of the real deal estrogen. So it's more of a whisper. It acts more like tamoxifen, which is a blocker. It hits that receptor and then just parks in it like a car in a parking spot that you wanted. Soy is working for you, not against you. Is that really true though? Like if we look at literature in humans consuming high versus low amounts of soy, then we should see two things. We should see less breast cancer in high soy consumers, and we should see less breast cancer recurrence and death in breast cancer thrivers who are high versus low soy consumers. And in fact, in every single human study ever done looking at soy and breast cancer incidence, we see a solid 25 to 60% reduction in occurrence, recurrence, and death for high versus low soy consumers. So soy it up, especially in adolescence and young adulthood. This has a lot of protective effect downstream, but it's never too late. Just tofu, soy, milk, edamame, soybeans, tempeh, miso, natto. Those are the fermented soys, might be more digestible if you're new to soy. It's a superfood.
About 95% of the soy planted in the United States has been genetically engineered to withstand weed killers like glyphosate, which is an endocrine disruptor and a probable carcinogen. Most of the genetically engineered and glyphosate-contaminated soy is being used as animal feed or to make soybean oil and other highly processed foods. But some of it is turning into tofu and edamame too. If this is a concern for you, it's a good reason to opt for organically grown soy products as much as possible.
True, Ocean. And organic tofu and tempeh and soybeans and soy milk aren't hard to find either. Now let's talk about another cancer-fighting superfood, mushrooms.
There was one study looking at Chinese women and mushroom consumption, and they had a 64% drop in breast cancer incidence for consuming 10 grams of white button mushrooms. I don't think of my food in grams, so I'll let you know. It's half of a white button mushroom a day versus no mushroom eaters. So they are definitely powerhouses. Shroom it up. Mushrooms have a potent aromatase inhibition ability. So they go out into where your fat cells are and shut off that enzyme that's creating excessive estrogen. And studies have shown repeatedly that you would think, I mean, I would just think and guess that it would have to be a fancy portobello or chanterelle or oyster or one of these more expensive mushrooms. But actually the cheapo little white button does have the most aromatase inhibition.
It turns out that all the different kinds of edible mushrooms, including fresh, frozen, and dried, have unique and potent anti-cancer properties.
Yes, and the study Dr. Fong just mentioned, which found that women who ate about 1 mushroom per day reduced their breast cancer risk by 64%, also explored the impact of combining mushrooms with green tea. Researchers discovered that when women regularly consume both mushrooms and green tea, their risks drop even further by an impressive 89%. So what makes green tea so powerful?
The magical compound in there is called epigallocatechin gallate. EGCG. So EGCG seems to be the real magic in green tea. It has even been shown, albeit in petri dish studies, to destroy breast cancer stem cells. Breast cancer patients, they were Asian women, about 1,190 women who had breast cancer, and then they looked at mortality as it related to green tea consumption. And those who drank 3 or more cups of green tea a day in stage 1 breast cancer had 57% recurrence, and in stage 2, a 31% drop in recurrence. And it's just really anti-inflammatory, one of the most potent antioxidants. It sends all of these polyphenols throughout your blood and have a host of other health benefits. But when it comes to cancer, it fights and often wins.
We always hear about the incredible benefits of fruits and vegetables, which raises an important question and one that many people ask. Are fruits and vegetables more nutritious, raw or cooked?
Let's be clear that consumption of vegetables, raw or cooked, has an obvious and reproducible inverse association with cancer. So the more veggies, the less cancer, particularly of the upper GI tract, so mouth, throat, esophagus, stomach, and breast. But raw versus cooked, does it really matter? And the answer is sometimes. So cooking will destroy certain enzymes in your food. It could make them less digestible, so you're just not getting that bang for your broccoli buck, for example. And so I'm going to use that example, actually. Broccoli. There are little cell components. When you chomp your food, it all mixes. And precursors, isothiocyanates, come on out, and so does an enzyme called myrosinase. They mix together, and out comes sulforaphane, which I've talked about as being able to murder cancer stem cells. So what happens when you roast broccoli? Well, myrosinase gets degraded. There's no enzyme, so there's no magic. And so that would be an example of a food better consumed raw or lightly steamed so that you're preserving the enzyme so you're getting the magic.
Now, sure, if you're going to wok some broccoli and cabbage in a wok and you're not going to cook it all the way through, it's still going to maintain the activity of that enzyme to a degree. You're not going to, but if you overly cook it so it's like mushy and very soft, you're going to deactivate most of the enzymes. The same thing is true with onions. There's an enzyme in onions called alliinase, A-L-L-I-I-N-A-S-E. That enzyme is heat sensitive. People know when they cut an onion, sulfenic acid makes your eyes tear and burn. Well, that sulfenic acid, that chemical reaction occurs when you cut the onion, and the chemical reaction is forming the sulfenic acid and other organosulfide compounds that have powerful anti-cancer effects. What I'm saying, these anti-cancer compounds are formed as we're cutting and chewing and blending the vegetables. And when we don't overcook them, we get more of those benefits. That's why we make a soup. We take, let's say, mustard greens or cabbage or bok choy, and we cold blend it in the blender. So before we don't add the vegetables to the soup, we break them down so it leaves the enzymes intact. So you form the chemical reaction in the blender. Then you take that green vegetable puree and you add it to into the base of the soup. So the chemical reaction occurred to form the ITCs in the blender. Then you put your onions or your leeks or your scallions in the blender. Maybe you laid a little liquid in there and you blend that down. So it's not under heat. The onion hasn't been cooked yet. So the alliinase enzyme is fully intact. And we made that onion puree. And we pour that into the soup next. If we put the onion in the soup directly and took it out once it got cooked and then took it out to blend it into the base, you would lose a lot of those beneficial compounds. So it's the way we're cooking the vegetables and the fact that we're also paying attention to eating a good amount of vegetables raw. So one of my mantras is to say to eat a big, nice salad at least once a day. And also chewing a salad with your teeth is good for your teeth and your jaw. It mixes with bacteria in the mouth. It forms more nitric oxide. There's beneficial effects to eating and chewing a salad. So there is a benefit to having raw vegetables and cooked vegetables in your diet. We don't want to overcook the vegetables, but we should still eat cooked vegetables and raw vegetables. It enhances the amount of overall vegetable consumption. Keeping in mind that Americans eat, the American diet is 2% vegetables. 2%. And that's all vegetables, The American diet is now 60% of calories from processed foods, about 35% from animal products, around 10% from produce, but out of the produce is only 2% vegetables. Let me just say that most likely the most powerful anti-cancer food and substance we can consume are green cruciferous vegetables.
So bell peppers, high in vitamin C. Vitamin C is also a critical antioxidant in taking care of our cells. Vitamin C is a known heat-sensitive ingredient. So when it's exposed to cooking, it might decrease that. So that's where maybe eating bell peppers raw is going to be much more beneficial if you're trying to get more vitamin C levels than having it cooked. Same thing with, since it's vitamin C, we're talking about citrus foods, right? So if you squeeze lemon at the end of your meal before you're about to have it, you're going to get more nutrients from that than if you cooked something citrus, if you're looking specifically at vitamin C. The other foods that you might want to consider cooked would be things like tomatoes. We all eat tomatoes, right? So tomatoes have a compound called lycopene, which is a very, very powerful antioxidant, and it becomes more bioavailable for our body when we cook tomatoes.
2 minutes of sauteing a tomato, and the lycopene is 54% more bioavailable. 15 minutes of sauteing is 300% more bioavailable. So tomatoes are better eaten cooked. Does that mean no raw tomatoes, cherry tomatoes on your salad? Of course not.
Mushrooms always should be eaten cooked, okay? I do not want you picking up any mushrooms from salad bars that are raw sliced mushrooms. They actually have a toxin in them that is not good for us. So all mushrooms, no matter what kind you're dealing with, should be cooked. The nutrient focus for mushrooms is going to be the B vitamins. It's going to be minerals like potassium, and cooking the mushrooms helps break down those cellular walls so we can have the more bioavailability of the nutrients that we actually want.
The bottom line with fruits and vegetables is that we'll be healthiest if we eat lots and lots and lots and lots of them. There really seems to be no upper limit on benefit as long as we're getting a diversity. Now some, especially cruciferous vegetables and alliums like onions and garlic, might be most potent when at least some portion is raw, but tomatoes and mushrooms are best eaten cooked. And please don't make the perfect the enemy of the good here. Cooked cruciferous veggies and raw tomatoes are still wonderful, and they still help fight cancer. Other than being deep fried, the best way to prepare a vegetable is the way that gets you to eat it.
I totally agree, Ocean. And now let's take a look at another couple of closely related key strategies for cancer prevention, which are movement and stress management. It turns out they could both be a huge part of the anti-cancer puzzle.
Exercise and stress management have a very important role in cancer prevention. In fact, you will notice that you're seeing changes in the guidelines related to physical activity for individuals with cancer. It used to be when I was in practice that a lot of times you would hear, go home and rest or eat whatever you want to eat. We didn't necessarily address movement or exercise and stress management even while that individual was going through active treatment. So first, let's talk about physical activity. Regular physical activity has a significant role not only in preventing cancer, but also in navigating your cancer journey. I was part of a group when I was in Kansas City, where I would actually, on a weekend, go to a CrossFit gym and lift weight with breast cancer thrivers. These women were incredible. So not only does it help contribute to maintaining your muscle mass, it may help you with weight management, which is important for multiple different types of cancers, but it's empowering. It gave these women, they came into the gym on a Saturday and they were ready to go. Regular physical activity can also lower systemic inflammation, and inflammation can be a causative factor for cancer, but while you're going through your cancer treatment, whether it's radiation or chemotherapy, you may also have an increased level of systemic inflammation, and that can help be mitigated by physical activity. There's also a large study that was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association that found higher levels of physical activity were associated with lower risk of 13 different types of cancers. So regular exercise not only can reduce your cancer risk, but it can keep you stronger through the journey.
There's a really interesting new study that looked at breast cancer, exercise, and outcome. So they asked these women who had high-risk breast cancer stages 1 to 3 to, did you exercise before your diagnosis? Did you exercise after? So we have 4 categories there that you can look at. Nope, didn't exercise before and I don't exercise now. That's going to be your null group. So relative to people who just are never exercisers, if you didn't before and you do now, if you did before and you still do now, if you did before but you stopped. And then they looked at the mortality rates 2 years later. So those who did not exercise but started had a 43% drop in mortality. Those who were just always exercising before and after, 68% drop in mortality. And interestingly, those who exercised, so you're like, hey, I'm fit. Oh, cancer happened, but now I stopped. Only a 9% drop in mortality. So not much different than the ones who just never exercised.
Mm-hmm.
There are other benefits, but if you're dead, it doesn't matter, right? So mortality is associated with exercise. The other part of that study, which I thought was so interesting, was how much, right? Because everybody wants to know, well, how much exercise? And so they had rated their exercise into these categories of time, 150 minutes or less, 150 to 300, or more than 300. And the mortality rates for less than 150 was a 59% drop in mortality. So just bust a move, like that's a huge drop.
Mm-hmm.
The 150 to 300, 58% mortality. So in absolute numbers, it was a percent lower, but it basically didn't matter, the extra 150 minutes. But if you were a 300-minute or more person, you had a 69% drop in mortality. So there are so many benefits to exercise that don't have to do with cancer risk reduction or mortality reduction, just in general with your own health, well-being, your emotional health, the decrease in stress and anxiety and depression. The data on that in exercise is very compelling. So there's really no good reason not to exercise.
Finally, I want to touch on stress and stress management in relation to both cancer prevention and cancer treatment. Chronic stress can negatively impact the body in many different ways. And prolonged stress can impair immune function, which reduces the body's ability to detect and eliminate abnormal cells before they turn into cancer. Stress also releases inflammatory cytokines, which can contribute to a pro-inflammatory environment in your body. High stress is also not helpful for adaptive coping behaviors. So I often see when people are highly stressed, they may make poor dietary choices, they may make other poor lifestyle choices. So implementing stress management techniques like mindfulness-based stress reduction, meditation, deep breathing, these have all been shown to decrease stress hormones and improve immune function. And I've even, over the past several years, you've seen multiple different modalities, even in cancer treatment centers, where they may be using an oculus mask. So individuals, while they're getting their infusion, may be able to use imagery, guided imagery, or mindfulness, or meditation, just to help reduce their stress while they're going through treatment. These are all important components of cancer prevention and navigating your cancer journey.
Movement and stress management can be huge factors in preventing and also in surviving with cancer. There's another piece of the puzzle that we need to also look at. Less than 10% of cancer cases are caused by genetics. The other 90% are caused by a combination of diet, lifestyle, and environmental factors. One of those environmental factors is toxins.
No doubt about it, Ocean. The role of environmental toxins in cancer is gaining more attention, and for good reason. These toxins lurk in everyday items like household cleaners, personal care products, plastics, and even the air we breathe. Could these hidden contaminants in our surroundings and daily lives have a greater impact on our health than we've previously understood? How do we protect ourselves?
As the science has been evolving, we know for certain that environment is a major factor in the genesis of cancer. It's a whole series of diseases, of course. It's a very complex disease, long latency period between exposures and onset of symptoms, and then the progression of the disease. It can be decades. But we're pretty clear on a couple of things. One, that we have underestimated the role of chemicals and other contaminants in causing cancer. I think we know now from additional studies that carcinogens exist in our food supply. They're added to our food supply oftentimes. They may be mild carcinogens that aren't as immediate in their impact. We also know that many chemicals that don't on their own cause tumors are contributing to hallmark pathways, characteristics of cancer cells, cancer hallmarks, that in ensemble fashion, when you add up the many chemicals we're exposed to, and our studies have found hundreds of chemicals in babies in the womb, in umbilical cord blood. So we know these exposures are complex, constant, long-term, and we know that oftentimes it's multiple carcinogens, that in ensemble fashion, these mixtures are almost certainly contributing to the burden of cancer, to the onset of cancer. So our feeling has been look at it two different ways. One thing, we want to reduce those exposures. On the other side, there are other substances, mostly phytogenic, mostly naturally occurring food-related substances that tend to have the opposite effect on some of these hallmark pathways. So they, in effect, counteract or boost the immune system's ability to detect these cancerous invaders. They have the ability to assist in healing of cells that have been damaged as cancer has expanded. Those two pathways really come down to avoiding bad stuff and trying to focus on consumption of the good stuff, because it's mostly food.
The body is built with the machinery to remove toxins, to deconjugate and make water-soluble toxins by the liver, to make fat-soluble toxins more water-soluble, to be excreted in the kidney. And the cells have the cellular machinery to break up toxins into smaller pieces, to use free radicals as a garbage-burning furnace to burn garbage in the cell. In other words, there's some free radical production in the cell that's there for a right reason. Confined in the Golgi apparatus or in the places where they're supposed to be, they can be utilized to chew up and destroy toxins. And the body is able to do that. But when we get an extraordinary amount of toxic material and too much free radicals, then the DNA becomes damaged. So within reason, the cell has the ability to control its exposure to poisons and to keep itself living healthily. Within each cell of your body, there's this purpose to maintain the viability and health of that cell, if you supply it with the right raw materials. So yes, it's wise to reduce our exposure to poisons and toxins, but also because we have some degree of toxic exposure that's unavoidable and unmeasurable. That's why we eat a diet, so that's why we're so careful to eat so many healthy foods and to not waste our calories on foods that have no nutrients in them. Because not only do you not get the nutrients the cell needs to remove and destroy toxins, but you also suck nutrients out of the cell when you eat foods that don't contain nutrients.
To reduce your exposure to cancer-causing toxins, it's crucial to avoid harmful compounds in our food. We've already covered red and processed meats, sugar, and ultra-processed foods, but a lot of people are also concerned about the pesticides found on fruits and vegetables. What exactly are these pesticides, and do they increase your risk?
Pesticides is an umbrella term that includes weed killers, insecticides that kill, bug killers, rodenticides aimed at, as it suggests, rodents, fungicides, this whole array of toxic chemicals that have become the foundation for some decades now for conventional modern agriculture. They have often have properties that are either directly carcinogenic. They may not yet be classified as known human carcinogens, but they're suspected. Maybe they cause cancer in one or two species of laboratory animals, so they haven't been recognized as known human carcinogens, but they have many of the characteristics that affect these hallmark pathways of cancer. A study in France that showed that an organic diet resulted in a 25% decrease in various cancers. These kinds of studies are increasingly showing that we have underestimated, undercalculated the burden that pesticides pose for cancer risk and for the burden in the population. We see intervention studies where people are on organic food for just a few days. Pesticide levels plummet from their past diet, conventional food. We see instances where we can obviously produce crops without these pesticides, and we're not taking a serious hit in productivity or yields. We're still eating just fine. In fact, we're eating in a healthier way. So I think that particular study and a whole slew of others, we cover them all the time in our work, points to the importance of questioning the status quo when it comes to pesticide use and the power of these pesticide companies, the influence they have, not just in the farming community, but obviously in Congress and regulatory agencies. And so to kick the habit, like we did for smoking, to extend that metaphor a little bit, is worth doing because the health benefits we're pretty confident will be abundant.
The best way to steer clear of food that might be contaminated with pesticides is to eat food that has been grown organically. This means it's been grown without the use of synthetic pesticides or fertilizers, and it's also not genetically engineered. When we talk about the benefits of organic food, the conversation often centers around personal health and maybe environmental sustainability. But there's another critical aspect: the well-being of the people who grow it.
Farming is not an easy job. I don't care how it's practiced, what's grown. My hat is off to these folks. But the fact of the matter is they are in many cases trapped into this pesticide use cycle, synthetic fertilizers and so forth. They're the front line, exposed to these substances when they spray it, when they handle it. Their families are on the front line because they live where they spray. I'm not one to sort of from afar tell someone how to farm their land. These are complex decisions. It takes a lot of skill to do it anyway that earns a living for the farmer. It is also pretty clear that pesticide companies have not been straight with farmers and certainly not farm workers when it comes to the risks of these chemicals. Time and again, we see instances where pesticide companies hid information about, say, paraquat, a weed killer, and Parkinson's disease. They've hid information about the exposure to pesticides in drinking water and rural and farm wells. Most rural areas, they get their water from groundwater and they drink it. And we find out decades later that it's been contaminated with chemicals like atrazine, in some cases with Roundup. The workers are the first ones to be exposed. A lot of workers have filed litigation, lawsuits, because they feel like they got Parkinson's disease from exposure to paraquat, or they've filed cases because they feel they got cancer from glyphosate, from Roundup, and so forth. A study just came out from the state Department of Pesticide Regulation that found pesticides in air in most of the samples they took in farm country. So we've permeated the environment. We've literally soaked the environment in these substances. They're designed to kill. And I think the real benefit to shopping with an eye toward regenerative and organic types of products is that in most cases, certainly with organic, if you're buying organic food, you're supporting an agricultural system that is using less pesticide, completely less toxic pesticide because it's not allowed, using much more benign pesticides, if at all. And that means the farm workers are safer, the farmers are safer.
There are a lot of great reasons to buy organically grown food if you can. It can be better for farmers, farm workers, the soil, the water, and of course, your own health and safety. But food that is grown organically costs more, and a lot of us struggle to afford it. If that's the case for you, one of the key things to bear in mind is that there isn't much pesticide exposure for the consumer on foods that have appeal that you don't eat, like for example, mangoes or avocados or bananas or melons. Pesticide contamination tends to be highest on leafy greens and on fruits and berries that are not grown organically.
Now you can wash pesticides off fruits and vegetables. The most effective way is to soak them in a solution of about 1 tablespoon of baking soda to 1 gallon of cold water for approximately 10 minutes before rinsing them well. That will get rid of most of any pesticide residues that will be there.
And most importantly, remember that vegetables are wonderful. Whether you eat them raw or cooked, boiled or steamed or baked or microwaved, fresh or frozen, and whether they are grown organically or not.
Now, another form of toxins that can increase our cancer risk is in our kitchens, but it's not our food. Let's take a look at cookware and food storage containers. Could they be creating hidden risks to our health?
So we have the widespread use of chemicals, whether it's in our food production. We have chemicals in consumer products such as substances like phthalates and BPAs in everyday plastics and cosmetics that we are using. And these can contribute to something called hormone disruption. When the hormones are disrupted, they can impact things like breast cancer, which 1 in 8 women will get breast cancer in their lifetime. It can impact men and getting prostate cancer. So one of the key factors for the increase of cancer in our modern society is environmental toxins and industrialization. When I'm looking at cookware from a cancer risk, what I want you to be careful of is the products that we see on the market that are nonstick. And my concern with nonstick products is the forever chemicals. And forever chemicals mean forever. They stay in our body, they stay in our environment, and they will influence how your cells are functioning. So from a cancer perspective, I'm thinking about that DNA damage inside the nucleus of the cell. I'm thinking about the way the cell is communicating, the body's ability to kill off cancer cells when we have chemicals in our body that just don't belong there. So nonstick cookware is not exactly the way to go, and I know it's abundant and you find it everywhere. So sticking with some of the other options, which might be cast iron, stainless steel, or ceramic, would be a much safer choice to help kind of set up your household. And you don't need to buy expensive products, just one good fry pan, one good boiling pot. Keep it simple. Plastic food storage containers actually have compounds like phthalates and BPA that I'm concerned about. So all the plastics we know are man-made are contributing to our rise in cancer. So we know that these disrupt hormone production and increase the risk of breast cancer for women, prostate cancer for men, as well as hormonal issues from a thyroid disease for both men and women. And plastics are also contributing to our children as well from a brain health perspective. So eliminating plastic, that means the plastic Ziploc bags, that means the plastic Tupperware, as much of the plastic as you can get. Consider also where your food and supplies are coming from, whether they are in plastic bottles. Now I know even for beauty products, you can get cardboard or body bars, shampoo bars, where you don't have any plastic. Plastic is a cumulative effect on damaging your DNA over time. My preferable choice and what I have in my household would be glass or stainless steel. Those are the two ways that I store my food, is glass or stainless steel.
In our home, for food storage containers, we use glass. For water bottles, we use stainless steel. And for cookware, we use a combination of stainless steel and enamel-coated cast iron. That helps reduce our toxic exposures.
What about drinking water? Many people depend on drinking water that could be contaminated with harmful chemicals like PFASs, also known as forever chemicals, and other carcinogenic compounds. What are these chemicals and how do we protect ourselves?
Scientists at the Environmental Working Group looked at water and they found 22 different chemical contaminants that cumulatively could increase cancer risk. There were things in there like nitrates and PFAS, which is polyfluorinated alkyl substances, PFAS.
A+.
Yay! In fact, actually, just in 2023, PFOS was placed on the Group 1 carcinogen list by the IARC, the International Agency for Research on Cancer. But what is PFAS? Most of us come into contact with our non-stick cooking ware, but it's ubiquitous. There are 5,000 of these PFAS chemicals. So, they're all man-made and they're in everything from like firefighting foam to the couch that you could be sitting on. So certain ones of them can be grouped as carcinogenic. And this one just made the list. So that is in, not that particular one, but the group of chemicals known as PFAS were also found in the water. Some disinfectant products, even radioactive substances make their way into tap water. Tap water, which is surprising to me every time I think about it, is, though, often safer to drink than certain bottled waters. And the reason is that the suppliers of tap water have to actually verify what's in the water. And you can look at the ewg.org/tap water list and put in your zip code and see what's going on in your water. And if you happen to live in a zip code where the water has these chemicals or things that you think that's undrinkable, you can invest in a water filter. You've got point of entry filters, which are going to be where the water's entering your entire house. So now you don't even have to think about it, whether you're turning on the faucet or taking a shower. It's all filtered water. As you can imagine, those are pricier than a point of use, they call it, where you put it like on the faucet. But certainly filtering out some of these carcinogens would be beneficial.
If you want to minimize your environmental exposure to potentially carcinogenic compounds, some of the key steps you may want to take if you can include getting a good quality air filter for home and work, getting a good quality water filter, doing what you can to avoid exposure to tobacco smoke, replacing plastic food storage containers with glass, silicone, or metal ones, steering clear of non-stick frying pans, especially the Teflon type, and doing what you can to reduce your exposure to off-gassing plastics.
Ultimately, cancer doesn't just pop out of nowhere. The groundwork for cancer is laid over a lifetime of exposures. And while it can be a frightening and even devastating disease, choosing to live in a way that supports cancer prevention can be incredibly empowering. And it can lead you in many positive directions.
That's so true, Nicole. And if you do face cancer, please don't slide into guilt or shame. Remember that 4 out of every 10 Americans get a cancer diagnosis in their lifetime. Chances are very high that you or someone very close to you has had, or will have cancer at some point. For some people, perhaps most people, a cancer diagnosis is really scary. But sometimes it can also be a catalyst for some big changes. Could that lead sometimes to something good?
You know, when patients and their families go through a cancer diagnosis, what I see is so varied. It really shows you how much personality and attitude, color, perception change people's attitudes toward fear and risk, right? Because everything with cancer becomes then an odds game of recurrence and mortality. So I've seen the gamut of responses. But when people truly take a moment to internalize and understand that this is potentially life-threatening, it can actually be one of the most pivotal, important moments in that person's life and in the people around them who are really dedicated to supporting them through this journey. And that moment becomes a, wait a second. So everything I've been doing, thinking, not doing, stressing about, etc., up until this moment created a cell environment inside of me that made this cancer happen or allowed it to happen. I can't just emerge from this experience going back and being exactly the same. So together, we create a plan of change that includes diet and lifestyle, and their family and friends get involved too. So as devastating and frightening as a cancer diagnosis can be, it can also become one of the most transformative moments that sets that person and her circle on a path of actual strength, enlightenment, purpose. Nobody wants cancer.
Yeah.
But I have seen many people be grateful for having had it.
What's inspiring is that prevention isn't just saying no to cancer. It's also about saying yes to feeling healthier and more alive. And for some people, the journey of preventing cancer or seeking to heal from it can be profound and even transformative. Like Mick Greeley.
I was diagnosed with a melanoma on my neck, and I had a big operation and moved on my lymph nodes, and I thought I was in the all clear. And then about a year later on a routine scan, the cancer showed up in my lungs. And then all hell broke loose, and I nearly spent 3 weeks in hospital fighting for my life during that period of time. I came out of hospital and there was nothing there for me for the pharmaceuticals to give me. So I still had the tumours in my lungs. So I'm planning to adopt the raw vegan diet. At the moment, I'm in limbo. Sure. You know, so I need to do something.
So today we are flying out to the US to go and meet Mick again. There is a health centre on the East Coast he is staying at for a few weeks, which uses lifestyle and diet to help people optimise their immune systems whilst they're using conventional treatments to combat their health challenges such as cancer and diabetes.
Michael has now been at the Institute for 3 weeks and has not eaten anything apart from mostly raw, vegan whole foods.
I have to say I really look forward to eating all this raw vegan food. When I came initially, I found it very, very difficult. But now I actually look forward to coming and eating it. I think it's really, really nice, you know. I feel absolutely brilliant. I've lost over 20 pounds since I've come here eating this type of food. I just feel $1 million. I'm on the way home now with my 3 weeks of knowledge, with my new lifestyle. So please God, everything will work great. So God bless. Thank you.
The whole oncology community is moving towards the importance of diet. So we want patients to kill the cancer. We don't want to give them chemotherapy and radiotherapy. We want their own immunity to kill the cancer. So the best way to improve the immunity goes back to square one of living a healthy lifestyle. So suddenly lifestyle and diet is now in the mainstream of oncology treatments.
Hi Mick.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm really good. And yourself, sir?
I'm very good, sir. I'm very good.
Good. You sound well.
Yeah, I am. I'm in great form. I'm just giving you a quick buzz to let you know that I had a scan last week.
Okay.
And I've been told by my oncologist that I'm now cancer-free.
No. Wow. Oh, you must be happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're all thrilled here.
Hey.
How are you doing, sir?
Good. And yourself?
Good.
Very good. Long time no see?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
nearly a year. These were just scans that I had done showing my tumour there, and this one here 12 months ago where it shows my tumour has disappeared. And I'm just wondering on what your opinion would be.
Oh, Michael, you're a fantastic example of someone who has empowered yourself to help medical treatments. I mean, it's absolutely great what you've done. And you've cooperated with the medical profession, you've had your immunotherapies, you did run into toxicity problems, and you dealt with it yourself. I mean, you changed to a plant-based diet, you reduced processed sugar, you exercise. I mean, you look amazing today.
Thank you.
You have probably up to about a 40 to 50% better chance of responding to these new biologicals which you've previously had. So don't stop, whatever you're doing a grand job. Now the priority is even greater because, of course, we're moving to these biological agents. And we need patients to have a good immunity before taking them. So now lifestyle is becoming a very high priority. So moving forward, you're sort of you're carrying the banner and a great example for patients in front of you.
It's 2 years now since I was diagnosed with the advanced melanoma. I should be well and truly dead at this stage. I have to say that only for my wife I wouldn't be here. She was the one who did all the research. She stayed up every night. Research and research. I was her little project, and she wasn't going to let me die. She was the one that pushed the veganism. Try it. So I'm so happy I did. So I have to say, only for my wife and the vegan diet, I wouldn't be here today.
In this episode, we've explored the profound impact of diet, lifestyle, and environmental choices on cancer prevention. We've learned how wholesome plant-based foods, regular exercise, stress management, and reducing exposure to toxins can empower you to take control of your health.
And the science is clear. Small daily actions can have a big impact. From adding more colorful fruits and vegetables to your plate, to swapping out plastic containers and taking a walk to clear your mind, every step matters.
That's true metaphorically. It's also true literally. In our next episode, Fit Over 40, we're going to explore strategies for optimizing fitness, nutrition, and longevity to thrive at every age and stage of life.
Wherever you are on your path, Fit Over 40 will bring you actionable tips and inspiration to help you enjoy your cherished body and to feel your absolute best.
We'll see you there. Let's do this. No matter where you come from or what you've been through, the simple truth is that you are meant to thrive. You deserve boundless energy, a clear mind, and a lean and healthy body. You deserve to feel confident and clear about what you eat and why. The Food Revolution Summit is packed with insights, and trying to catch and absorb all of them in 1 week can be hard. That's why we created the Empowerment Package. With your Empowerment Package, you can own the entire summit, plus all the transcripts and loads of bonus materials for life. Absorb this world-changing material at a pace that's comfortable and easy for you. Join the movement. Support the food revolution. Buy your Empowerment Package today. Thank you so much for sharing in that powerful episode. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comments section on our broadcast page. Make sure you refresh the comments with the button provided there so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted. Angie said, I've lost 3 close family members to cancer. I need to know how to prevent it. Oh, Angie, I'm so sorry about that. We're sending you lots of love, and I hope that what you've learned today is helpful and empowering for you. Nita said, when I was diagnosed with colon cancer in 2007, I'd been vegetarian for years, but ate cheese multiple times a day. While I was receiving chemo, a physician friend introduced me to Dr. Campbell's study on cancer. Since that time, I have basically stayed away from all dairy. The Food Summit is reinforcing my need to stay away from dairy. I really appreciate the work that Food Revolution is doing. Thank you. Thank you, Nada, for being here. So sorry that you had to deal with a terrifying diagnosis of colon cancer, but here you are 18 years later. Congratulations, and we're sending you lots of love, and I'm so glad that it sounds like for you going off dairy has been helpful. That's true for a lot of people. Wendy said, please discuss artificial meat like Impossible Meat and Beyond Meat. Also, for years, Seventh-day Adventists have been eating meat-like products made from wheat gluten. How healthy are all the meat substitutes, including the meatless sausages like Morningstar makes? Thank you. Well, Wendy, thank you for the question. New meat alternatives include innovative plant-based proteins from diverse sources like pulses and fungi and microalgae, as well as advanced cultivated or lab-grown meat, which is made from animal cells growing on a medium in a controlled environment. And these options all aim to replicate the taste and the texture, and in some cases, the nutrition of conventional meat, offering consumers a wider range of choices beyond more traditional options like tofu or tempeh, or of course beans. Now, there's no doubt some of these products are helping a lot of people cut back on animal products, and that's a big win for animal welfare and for the environment. And they can be stepping stones for people who want the taste and the texture of meat without the cruelty or environmental destruction that comes with industrial animal agriculture. Now, that said, not all meat substitutes are created equal, especially when it comes to health. A lot of them are ultra-processed, and they're packed with additives, sodium, refined and saturated fats, and isolated proteins. Some, like the Impossible Burger, even contain genetically engineered ingredients like soy leg hemoglobin. Soy leg hemoglobin, let me say that again. While that might help mimic the taste of meat, we don't really know the long-term health impacts. Traditional options like wheat gluten, which is also known as seitan, and also soy-based products can be less processed, especially if you make them yourself or if you choose cleaner brands. But even those aren't whole foods. They're more like transition foods. They're helpful in moderation, but not something to build your entire diet around. The Morningstar products, I haven't checked into them recently. When I looked a while back, they were pretty highly processed. You want to look at the amount of saturated fat, the amount of sodium, and of course, how processed something is. At Food Revolution Network, we encourage people to move towards a whole foods, plant-powered way of eating. That means it's rich in fruits and veggies, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds. If a meal alternative is going to help someone take a step in that direction, I think that is worth celebrating. But the real magic happens when we can fall in love with foods that love us back, that are simple and natural and truly nourishing, not just for our bodies, but for our values and our destinies. So enjoy the journey, and remember, plants don't have to pretend to be meat to be delicious. And whatever helps you on the journey, I say, keep moving and use the help you need. Mita said, "Good morning. Looking forward to this day's episode. I would like to know if whole foods plant-based diet can help with my MS. I've heard from everyone, doctors, family, and friends, that multiple sclerosis is something you can't get rid of. MS has created havoc in my life, and I'm not able to come out of the medical mess. Would appreciate your advice and thoughts on this. Because of MS, I have to keep the progression, and the Ocrevus infusion I have to take to keep the progression of MS at bay. I've developed some other symptoms too. I have blood sugar, and my stomach is always bloated, indigestion, and sometimes constipation. Appreciate your help and guidance." Well, Mita, thank you for your courage and openness in sharing, and we're sending a lot of love to you. MS can be a devastating condition, and I want to acknowledge the pain and the frustration that you're experiencing. You're right that mainstream medicine typically says there's no cure, but that doesn't mean there's no hope. There is a growing body of research and the experience of many, many people which suggests that a whole foods, plant-based diet can help reduce inflammation, can support immune balance, and can improve quality of life for people living with MS. We've heard powerful stories from folks who've embraced a whole foods plant-based lifestyle and found relief from symptoms like bloating and constipation and fatigue, and yes, MS flare-ups. Of course, every body is unique. I'm not offering medical advice here, but I am saying food is foundational. It fuels your cells and your brain and your gut and your immune system, and shifting towards fiber-rich, anti-inflammatory foods like fruits and vegetables and legumes and whole grains and nuts and seeds can help calm the storm inside and give your body the best chance to heal and thrive. I want to suggest you check out the film Code Blue, which features the work of one of our past summit speakers, Dr. Sarai Stansek. Dr. Stansek had devastating MS when she was young. She went on to turn it around and even become a marathon runner. Again, the film is Code Blue. And there is hope, and there's a lot you can do that really could help. Sharon said, "I'm so impressed with the episode so far. I do eat the rainbow. I have 3 balanced meals a day. I grew up in a family that always had a big garden, preserved food, never had canned food, made their own cheese from hand-milked cows. As you can see, I grew up on a mixed farm in the 50s. But I was not a meat eater as a child. I lived on fruits like bananas and milk. My mom was very concerned as I was not eating everything, but the doctor said I was doing fine. I was never much of a meat eater, but I did like my sweets and bread. Now that I'm 75, I'm starting to have some stiff joint and muscle issues and also need to lose some weight. By the sounds of other comments, going plant-based would help those issues as well as lose weight. I'm on medication for hypothyroidism, which I have a genetic predisposition for, as my father was diagnosed with it when he was 13, sorry. Is that something that could be corrected by going plant-based? Well, Sharon, thank you so much for sharing your story. It sounds like you were raised with a deep connection to real food from the garden, from scratch, and with a lot of love. And even as a kid, your body had its own wisdom, guiding you toward fruits and lighter foods. Now you're 75 and you're dealing with some joint and muscle pain and some weight concerns and hypothyroidism in the picture. And you're asking a really wise and heartfelt question. The truth is that moving toward a whole food, plant-based diet can absolutely support your overall health. It can reduce inflammation, it can improve digestion, it can boost energy, and it can help with healthy weight loss, all of which can make a big difference in how you feel day to day. Now, when it comes to hypothyroidism specifically, I want to be real. Food can be incredibly supportive, especially when it comes to gut health, inflammation, and immune function. It's not likely to reverse hypothyroidism on its own, especially if it's autoimmune or has a strong genetic component, like in your case. But we can give your body the best possible foundation for resilience and vitality. A few food-related pieces to keep in mind are that iodine is essential for thyroid health, and plant-based eaters sometimes need to be intentional about getting enough. This could come from small amounts of seaweed, like dulse or nori. It could come from iodized salt, or it could come from a quality supplement. Now, about soy, there's a lot of confusion out there. But moderate amounts of whole soy foods like tofu or tempeh are usually considered safe, even beneficial for most people with thyroid conditions. You just want to be sure to take your thyroid medication on an empty stomach and wait a few hours before eating soy or really any food to maximize absorption. The bottom line here is that a plant-based diet might not be a cure-all, but it can absolutely be a part of your healing journey. You're already listening to your body, and that's a great place to start. And we're here with you, cheering you on and supporting you every step of the way. George said green tea was mentioned, but I'd like to hear about yerba mate and guayusa teas. I have at least 3 cups of these each day and like to believe they are anti-cancerous. Well, George, thanks for your question. There is some research on yerba mate and guayusa, but it's not nearly as extensive or conclusive as what we know about green tea. Both yerba mate and guayusa contain a lot of antioxidants and plant compounds that we know can offer health benefits. But the evidence for cancer prevention in humans is still limited. We just don't have a lot of research. Yerba mate, we know, has shown anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties in lab studies. One study from the University of Illinois found that certain compounds in yerba mate could kill human colon cancer cells in vitro. But we also know that drinking yerba mate that's been brewed at very high temperatures has been linked to an increased risk of esophageal cancer. This is likely due to heat damage and maybe exposure to compounds called PAHs, or polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which can form when the leaves are drying. Guayusa is less studied, but it also contains antioxidants, and it might have anti-inflammatory and metabolic benefits. So far, there's not a lot of direct evidence linking guayusa to cancer prevention, especially in humans, but that doesn't mean it doesn't help. It just means we don't know definitively. So these teas might support overall wellness because they obviously have some awesome plant compounds, but there's not yet strong evidence to confirm if they actually have cancer-fighting effects in people, whereas we do have pretty strong evidence with green tea. If you do want to enjoy these, then drinking them at moderate temperatures as part of a balanced plant-rich diet can help you get their benefits without excessive risk. I've got to say though, 3 cups a day is a pretty good amount, especially when you do that every single day. So I might want to suggest that you diversify your caffeinated beverages a bit. We've got lots of data on green tea, as well as black tea and even coffee in general, and they're considered safe and health supportive for most people. Of course, how people process caffeine is unique, but it sounds like you're already drinking the caffeine with your yerba mate and guayusa. So, you know, these beverages might be fine, they might even be great, but again, especially given the esophageal cancer research, you might want to consider diversification. Hope that's helpful for you. Carla said, "Hi Ocean, my name is Carla and I come from Cape Town, South Africa. I'm a vegetarian inspired to go vegan. My husband has diverticulitis. I suffer from depression and insomnia and have high cholesterol. My eldest child suffers from chronic fatigue syndrome, and my daughter-in-law has multiple sclerosis. Carla, I'm sorry you're dealing with so many challenges. Life can be tough sometimes, and when we're dealing with challenges ourselves, it can be all the harder to have loved ones also struggling. And when challenges include depression and insomnia, it can be very hard to get motivated to make positive changes. But you're here, and you're moving forward, and we want to support you. We want to make it a little easier for you. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package. Our team will be in touch with you. Congratulations. You're now going to own these episodes for life, so you can watch them and you can share them with your daughter-in-law, with your eldest child, with your loved ones, and you can use this to get re-inspired. You'll also have all of the expert interviews from the summit, so you can go deeper into the topics that interest you the most. I hope you will put it to good use, and I truly believe you will. Congratulations. Our team will follow up with you. And congratulations also to all of our new empowerment package owners, including Susan from Germany, Rose from New Jersey, Tracy from New Zealand, Gordon from Ohio, Willie from Norway, Irene from Texas, June from New York, Marlene from Nevada, and Cheryl from California. Thank you all so much for investing in our mission. We could not do this without your support. And with your support, we can do so much. We're so grateful that you're aboard. Diane said, wow, extremely educational and great info. I think I've watched all the summits so far. Been whole foods plant-based since late 2013. Well, Diane, we started with our first summit in 2012, so you might be right in there with us. Diane said, I went plants only just a year ago. My diabetes is now in non-diabetic range, and my CKD score raised by 2 stages. My nephrologist was shocked at the improvement. Thank you very much for these summits and all the great speakers. Well, Diane, thank you for being here, for the whole journey with us, for going back about 14 years now. And congratulations on making these changes. I want to call something out, folks. Diane started a plant-based journey, whole foods plant-based journey in 2013, 13 years ago. And yet, as of just a year ago, she was still struggling with some challenges with diabetes and a problematic CKD score. But then she took that next step just a year ago. And now she's seeing these dramatic improvements that are shocking her nephrologist. For a lot of people, the journey towards increasingly healthy eating is just that. It's a journey, not a destination. You don't just get to a spot and set up camp. You keep moving, you keep optimizing, you keep learning, you keep getting feedback from your body, from your life, from summits like this as new research comes out, and you keep optimizing. And each step you take can make it easier to keep going and to keep moving. But you do need to set yourself up with some support. Whether that's being on an email list like Food Revolution Network, or being a part of a community like Whole Life Club, or finding another resource, or a potluck, or a circle of friends, or a support group, or whatever it is. Don't try to do this all by yourself, because we learn best in community, and we need accountability, and we need feedback loops, and we need support. And for a lot of people, this summit, twice a year, is a big part of that support system. So thank you all for being here and for being a support for each other. I hope you can feel through the comments on the broadcast page that you're not alone, that there are more than 100,000 people in this summit, more than 1 million people part of Sorry. part of Food Revolution Network's community. And we're all in this together, learning, growing, deepening, and lifting each other up. Let's see, we heard from Linda, who talked about struggling with ARFID and many other health challenges. And I just want to say, Linda, thank you for being here and for listening all these years. And I want to honor your resilience. You've been through a lot. You talked in your comment about cancer, health challenges, and now ARFID, which can make eating feel like a daily battle. And yet you're still showing up and seeking answers and trying. And for those who don't know, ARFID is a serious eating disorder that's characterized by severely limited food intake. Unlike anorexia or bulimia, it's not driven by concerns about body shape or weight. Instead, the eating disturbance stems from specific fears or aversions or a general lack of interest in food. So, Linda, I want to say you referred to food as being kind of a nemesis. You're not alone. ARFID can be especially tough because even with all the knowledge and the best intentions, your body might resist what your mind wants or knows is best. So you mentioned in your comment that you're able to drink smoothies. So let's go there. It sounds like you're already using a plant milk and berries and protein powder and greens powder, which is a good start. You might want to consider adding some flax or chia or omega for the omega-3s and the fiber. Just make sure you consume your smoothie soon after blending, because otherwise it'll start to get really thick if you put chia or flax in there. Maybe add a little turmeric with black pepper for anti-inflammatory support. And if your digestion tolerates it, then add a few walnuts or a tablespoon of hemp seeds to boost some healthy fats. If texture's an issue, then keep things blended, smooth, and simple. There's no need to force more than you can comfortably enjoy. And above all, please don't give up on yourself. Healing isn't just about what you eat, it's also about how you speak to yourself and how you celebrate every small win and how you stay connected to hope and to self-love. You're not broken. You're in a process. And I'm grateful to be walking alongside you on this journey. Natalie said, hello, I've loved this summit since 2017 when I learned about it. This food movement inspired me so much that at 60 I went back to school and am now at 62 a certified holistic nutritionist and a certified functional practitioner, helping my clients live healthier lives through food. I'm in the early stages of building my practice and love all the learning I received from this series. It is so current and pertinent to me. I hope to be able to purchase future summits to have to refer back to, as it is just not an option at this time. Thank you for making this available for the world to see. Well, Natalie, thank you for being here, and congratulations on being on this journey and now becoming a holistic nutritionist and a functional practitioner and helping your clients to heal. That is beautiful. For a lot of folks, that is the path. We get inspired, we make changes, we experience results, and then we want to spread the word. We get more deeply informed, and we actually help people. Blessings to you. We want to make it a little bit easier for you to help people and also to deepen your knowledge so you can be of greater service. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package. You'll have all the recordings and the transcripts for life, as well as all the expert interviews, which could be especially helpful if you want to dive deeper. And make sure you check out the bonuses. There's more than $1,500 worth of health boosting bonuses that come with the empowerment package. Natalia, you're going to have it all, so congratulations. And we're just sending you lots of love on the journey. Our team will be in touch. Now, folks, I want to introduce our recipes of the day. Every day of the summit, there are 3 more recipes from Nicole D'Andrea Russert, RDN. Today, we've got the yummy tabbouleh salad. I'm going to make this suggestion up front, double the recipe, especially if you plan to share with others, which we definitely recommend. You might find yourself wondering how something so simple and easy to prepare could be so delicious and nutritious. Next, we've got the broccolini gremolata. Gremolata is a classic Italian condiment made with finely minced parsley, garlic, and lemon zest. It's known for adding bright and fresh flavor to a bunch of different dishes. And this nutrient-rich herby mix is a perfect topping for grilled tempeh or tofu, roasted vegetables, or spread over crusty whole grain bread. Enjoy. And finally today we have the grilled Mediterranean eggplant steaks. When transitioning to a plant-centric diet, people sometimes remove the meat and are left with an empty plate. It can be tough to know what to add in its place. Enter hearty vegetables you can sink your teeth into. These eggplant steaks are simple to make, they taste delicious, and they come without unwanted ingredients. Enjoy. I love getting to share the recipes with you all, folks, because the truth is that a lot of this comes to life in the kitchen. Diana said, Ocean, I love this summit. It's my first time. So informational. I'm so happy being Whole Foods plant-based that I want to share it with everyone. I'm trying to start a business to share what I know. Awesome, Diana. Thank you. Love it. You know, more and more people are asking, how can we make a living, not a killing? How can we actually make a difference? How can we spread the word? You know, when my dad walked away from Baskin-Robbins, a lot of people thought that our family was, against money or something. We're not. But I am pro-integrity and pro-values. I believe that we should make healthy profits from healthy food and a healthy economy. The way I look at it, Food 1.0 is about survival. If you can get enough calories to fill your belly, that is success. And that's the goal of food for a lot of people in the world today. Food 2.0 is about commerce, the buying and selling of goods. And we've got a huge array of texture and taste and cuisine and options. Our supermarkets could have 100 different kinds of breakfast cereal, right? Most of them not healthy, by the way. And that's why we moved to Food 3.0 now, where the central governing principle is health. Health for our bodies and health for our planet. And there can be healthy profits in Food 3.0 that come from healthy food. So congratulations to you, Diana, on moving forward. A lot of folks find that plant-based coaching is a beautiful way to move forward and to even make a living helping other people. If you're interested in that as a path for yourself to deepen your knowledge, to help others as well, then check out our plant-based coaching certificate at certificate.foodrevolution.org. Again, that's certificate.foodrevolution.org. Pamela said, thank you for these summits. I've learned so much and appreciate all the knowledge. I hear a number of these studies are on breast cancer. What about ovarian cancer? My breast friend has been fighting ovarian cancer for almost 5 years. It has now spread. I understand the difficulty in treating ovarian cancer. I would guess everything I learned today would also apply. However, due to the difficulty in treating ovarian cancer, is there anything else that would be needed to help reverse the growth? Pamela, thank you for your kind words and for being here with an open heart. And I want to honor the love and the care you're showing for your best friend. Ovarian cancer is one of the more difficult cancers to detect early and to treat effectively. I know how heartbreaking it can be when it spreads. You're absolutely right that many of the principles we've been sharing, like eating a whole foods, plant-powered diet and minimizing exposure to toxins and supporting the immune system, can apply across the board, including with ovarian cancer. That said, ovarian cancer does come with its own unique challenges because of how it often develops and spreads in the abdominal cavity, and because it's frequently diagnosed at later stages, it tends to be more aggressive and harder to contain. So, while we can't say that diet alone can necessarily reverse it, what we can say is that a nutrient-rich, anti-inflammatory diet might support the body in fighting back. There's some emerging research on the role of compounds like cruciferous vegetables, especially the compounds found in broccoli and cauliflower and arugula, sulforaphane being the superstar here, and also spices like turmeric. It's showing that these compounds can help the body respond to cancer. And we know that supporting the gut microbiome, reducing sugar and processed food, and lowering stress all matter as well. Ultimately, this is about giving your body every possible advantage. There may not be a silver bullet, but there is real power in stacking the deck in favor of health. One bite, one breath, one choice at a time. And of course, I've got to emphasize quality of life matters too. So taking time with loved ones, dialing down stress with meditation or prayer or mindfulness practices, sharing music and creative expression, spending time in nature, whatever else lifts your friend's spirits in a health-supporting way, these are all important to quality and quantity of life. You know, whenever any one of us is facing mortality, it provides an opportunity to ask the bigger questions. Questions like, why are we alive? And what really matters? And so often, for so many people, when we really face those questions, we see how much comes back to love. We're sending you and your friend our love. Well, folks, if you're wanting to go deeper on cancer, if you want to learn more, we've got a lot more to share with you. Today we have 3 expert interviews that are a part of the summit as well. Dr. Amber Orman talks about fighting cancer with food, how diet and daily habits can transform your health. Dr. Joel Furman is talking about nutrition and cancer prevention, how to protect your health and extend your lifespan. And Dr. Christy Funk is talking about cancer-fighting foods and what's best for the breast. All of these are available for the next day until we start tomorrow's broadcasts. And they're also available for life along with all 45 expert interviews with the Empowerment Package. We're now approaching the end of day 5 of the Food Revolution Summit docuseries, and I want to thank you all so much for expressing your opinions and sharing your questions and sharing your celebrations and what this all means to you in the comment section on the broadcast page. Please continue to post and engage there and to share with others as well. You can refresh the comments using the button provided there to see the most recent ones. Come on back and join us tomorrow when we go live at 7:45 Pacific Time, 10:45 Eastern, 2:45 p.m. GMT, or at 11 Eastern Time when we start rolling episode 6, Fit Over 40, Building Strength, Vitality, and Flexibility for Life. Tomorrow's episode is all about staying strong and sharp and energized at any age. We're going to explore simple science-backed ways to boost vitality and build a body and a mind you can count on and enjoy for years to come. In the meanwhile, continue to post your comments and share in the conversation on the broadcast page. Catch and share the replays right here on this page as soon as we're done live. The video will be on replay. Check out the empowerment package. Enjoy our recipes of the day and the expert interviews. And enjoy some good healthy food. We're wishing you a wonderful and thriving day. This is Ocean Robbins signing off from day 5 in the Food Revolution Summit. And here's a peek at what's coming up tomorrow. Most of us fade as we age, with more pain and with less strength, mobility. At Food Revolution Network, our mission is healthy, ethical, sustainable food for all. We want kids to learn about healthy food in school. We want doctors to learn how nutrition impacts health in medical school. We want the routine use of antibiotics banned from factory farms. We want a world where everyone, regardless of their ethnic or economic background, has knowledge of and access to healthy food for their family. We want a world in which heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, obesity, and diabetes are rare, and in which vibrant health is the norm. We're spreading the word, and we're standing for change. And with every empowerment package purchased, we make a donation to Trees for the Future, so they can plant another organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. Join this movement and stand with us for a real food revolution.